Happy Sunday. Welcome back to Retake the Week. We are in the thick of it. It's truly Rostermania season. Everything's changing, and we're not really sure where anything's going to go. Quacke, you better not be singing that damn song.
You said it. You said the words.
Oh my god. Couldn't people who make terrible music stop using like real expressions? Just make up new ones if you're going to make a garbage song around it anyway. But let's just get to the Counter-Strike. Well, no Counter-Strike's really being played. It's mostly going to be hypothesized as roster moves come through. But before we get into all that good stuff, we have to say thank you to the members who make this show possible in terms of Spotify uploads and in terms of me giving a toss. Honestly, I wouldn't wake up every Sunday morning on a 9 a.m. be like, no lie-in for me. Got to record the show. It wouldn't be a thing without members, I don't think. We would have given up a long time ago. But yes, members get access to interviews, behind the scenes, prospect demos, the right to vote, and a lot more fun stuff from me. So thank you again to the members for being a part of this. And yeah, hopefully much more to come. Quacke, anything to promo before we get into the roster news?
No, I don't think so. I had my biggest tweet of all time, and it was one of my shittiest tweets ever.
It's always the case, isn't it? Like,
it was a bait tweet where I inspect elemented it to say that Spinks was joining Eyeballers, and a surprising amount of people actually believed it. And it also got over 1,000 likes, which is just stupid. Yeah, no, we have a lot of Rostermania, and that's what I've been thinking about all week pretty much. And I also started playing Balatro. That's been my week.
Yeah, that's I saw the tweet. I didn't even see the tweet on Twitter. You sent it to me. I just looked at it. I was like,
yeah.
What? Okay, whatever. And the fact that it ends up being such a ridiculous amount of engagement just reminds me of just why Twitter is kind of dumb sometimes.
I think there were 3 people who replied with genuinely like, "Where are you seeing this?" Which is like, somebody. There was somebody. I just have to say this. There was somebody who quote tweeted me and said like, "Oh, screw you, man! I would give my right nut to play with Flusha and JW." And I'm like, first of all, like I specifically like wrote the text so it implied that Spinks would be replacing JW and Flusha is no longer there. Like, so it was somebody who couldn't read.
Yeah, that's so often the case. As I've noticed, every time I have a tweet that does well, a lot of people cannot read and will respond
for
to
a
things.
For a text-based social media, that is a surprising number of people who just have no reading comprehension.
Yeah, it's one of the downsides, I think, of having an international lingua franca. A lot of people are just using it, but don't truly understand it. And so when it comes to nuance of like complex thought, it's just lost on people. So I've had my fair share of funny comments to go through on some of my tweets recently. But let's talk about these rosters. We're going to start from the top. The big news, honestly, the news that was always going to dominate this period. That's Falcons adding Nico. Well, we knew that was happening. Tessus, Dexter, and Kixan. The 5th is Magisk, in case you'd forgotten. They basically hadn't played any good CS since Katowice, so it's hard to keep track of exactly who's playing on that roster anymore. I get it. This is a roster. Let's put it that way. This is a roster. I take issue with people, because I've seen this, I think HLTV confirmed we're on this, essentially saying this is the same thing as before. I think that's entirely wrong. Like, even if you remove Nico, this isn't the same thing as signing Snappy, Madden, Sumpius, and adding it to Magisk, and then having Boro/Dupree as your 5th. That's the part that they've claimed it's upgraded, but like, this is a different roster. It's only worse in the context of, this is probably a less tactical IGL, probably less experienced, less winning players. But it's better in the sense that they're better at shooting people, and also they're better CS2 players. Like, that Snappy roster was great if I'm trying to build was a great idea when we hadn't transitioned fully to CS2. Like, mentally. We hadn't truly understood what CS2 was going to be like, how it's going to be played. Kixan's a CS2 IGL. Tessus is a pop-off fragger in CS2 on certain maps. Like, he's not just a support player. And Dexter's the big question mark still. I mean, he's been a big question mark for a while now. But realistically, as far as rifle players, these are more powerful, more potent rifle players they've signed. Add to that, yes, now we have Nico. Yeah, this roster might be 5th best, 6th best in the world if they really pop off. And that's actually quite disappointing in terms of who Falcons want to be. But it's a pretty marked improvement to their post-Boros sort of landscape that they had last year, where it was all shit all the way for a variety of reasons, but not least because they had 0 rifle firepower pretty much all year. Like, Magisk had the occasional event, but that wasn't really his role on the roster. This is a certainly much stronger rifle core. I just don't think it's quite met their ambitions, and I expect in 6 months' time more moves.
I think the reason why people are saying it's more or less the same is because the last time they did this, like, in hindsight, yes, Snappy and Senpaias and Madden flopped tremendously on Falcons, but in hindsight, when the move was made, Senpaias was a top 6 player in the world. Snappy had won a big event in the year prior, and like, they were Snappy and Senpaias were probably coming in with more fire than Kixan and Dexter. Dexter is the big question mark, as you say. And then Kixan, of course, yeah, he might be better suited for this than Snappy was. And obviously, like, Tess is an obvious upgrade over Madden. So they've definitely done better. And I'm actually kind of impressed with how they've managed to swing this, considering what was originally reported. So to run through what we missed the past 3 weeks, to run through what we missed in the past 3 weeks. Yeah. So friend of the show, Tony, he likes to keep he's a big guy for, like, various roster moves which did or didn't happen throughout history, and probably top of his list in moves that nearly happened at this point is Jambo and U-Jerks joining Falcons alongside no IGL, which was the original report. When the big development that came out, which we in the past 3 weeks, which we missed to report, is m0NESY staying with G2, which threw a big spanner into the works of things, because originally they were talking to m0NESY and Jampy, and when m0NESY then decided to stay with G2, or rather, this is a weird narrative thing, but the report said that m0NESY was interested in the Falcons move, but then G2 blocked him. And considering the money that has since been paid, I think that's a very interesting gamble. But anyway, we're going to get onto that. m0NESY stays with G2. Jimpat thinks just me and Nico and Magisk is not going to be good enough. I'm going to stay with Mouse. That's probably a safer option. And to be fair, at that point, it wasn't clear if he was going to stay with Mouse. I think he was still... But the report was that he had said no to FaZe, G2, and Vitality already. And Falcons was like if he could play with m0NESY and Nico, that's what it was hinging on. m0NESY stays. And in the end, what the report ended up being is that they had exhausted their options, and they were now not just looking at, they were in talks with Jambo and U-Jerks to come in. And the report was that they had contacted every single IGL, like every single one. They had talked to basically every single near tier 1 team and contacted their IGL. And I'm assuming they didn't make a lot of headway. But the impressive turnaround is that they've actually managed to secure the heroic core, and they've done so with a reported tremendous, like a stupid amount of money. This is forever. I'm not sure I see a world where this is beaten in the next decade, but this is maybe the biggest transfer we are, for all intents and purposes, ever going to have in terms of money. So the reported sum is $6 million. And that is what Heroic have been paid for Tessus, Dexter, and Kixan to Falcons, and NertZ to Liquid, which we're going to talk about later. And like near $6 million. And Liquid have definitely not paid $1 million for NertZ. So that's more or less $5 million for Tessus, Dexter, and Kixan. That's ridiculous. Like
that's insane. The problem
somebody more or less paid $1.8 million for Tessus in 2024, which is like, he's a good player, but like you would hardly pay that money for Simple. Like it's like that's a simple transfer sum. Yeah.
The problem is that Falcons have come in and started offering so much money to so many teams for so many different players that everyone knows they have money. Like you can kind of name your price when it comes to negotiations with them. It's just about how willing you are to let a player go. That's why m0NESY ends up not leaving. It's not because there wasn't enough money to throw at G2. And I think eventually, sure, if Falcons had allowed themselves to get truly wrecked and spent like 15 million on m0NESY, yeah, sure, maybe he ends up going. But the point is, G2 essentially at some point to go, how expensive and difficult and improbable is it that we can rebuild to championship level if we let players go? Rather than, ooh, this is a lot of money, thanks, which is essentially what Falcons was hoping everyone would do. Yeah, so probably around 5 to 5.5 million for that core is just kind of laughable. Not because it's not a valid decision to go get them. They do have like a top 10 VRS rank, like somewhere in that sort of area.
I think they're in 8th or 9th, so very good.
Yeah.
They're going to be, for the foreseeable future, they're going to be at all tier 1 events.
Yeah, signing that level of core was borderline essential. Because even with the addition, let's say they do get Nico, m0NESY, Gimpfat, Magisk, they need a G2 player to gain the VRS. If they don't get the VRS, then it's all kind of fucky-wucky, like, to put it scientifically. Like, they are all of a sudden playing open qualifiers, trying to rely on, bounty sort of system and these other weird invite loopholes. It gets a lot more difficult.
Yep.
So I do appreciate they have to go get a core of this level. It's just the money they paid relative to the players they are. It's a bit of a problem optically. But overall, a good roster, a strong roster that'll probably not stay together too long in terms of the actual complete 5.
Yeah.
But be on the fringes, be on the sort of FaZe Mouse level where you're like, they might actually get you a good run here and there, but they're not really main title threats throughout the coming year.
Yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't put them. We're doing predictions later in this show, and my original prediction when the Jambo U-Jerks thing came out is that Nico was not going to play in the major. That was going to be my prediction. He wasn't even going to qualify, because I just didn't think so. They would have needed to probably bring back Snappy to even get the wildcard invite for Blast Bounty. So that would have been a purely online season, hoping to make an open qualifier or hoping to make, hoping to make it to one of the new Blast events somewhere in the mid part of the season. But then of course they managed to swing this, and that's kind of what I've been saying for a month, is that they had to look at a FaZe, Mouse, or Heroic core. Heroic definitely more realistic, and that's what they've gone for. But I'm interested, like this move, there are some, it's obviously not a slam dunk. I think with the reported player coming into G2, I think G2 still have absolutely have the better team going into the next season.
Yep.
So it's interesting Nico has left. It kind of makes sense m0NESY has stayed. There's a caveat to that, which I think we should talk about, which is that what G2 have done here is, instead of taking a massive bag, like, let's just think about it. If they could have taken $5.6 million for m0NESY, let's just assume that the same sum could have been taken. They would have made $5 million profit on the m0NESY transfer, despite paying $600,000 to Navi. Like, that would have been kind of crazy, but they decided not to. m0NESY was interested in the Falcons move, and he has until the end of 2025 left on his contract, until he can leave for free, and you're not making any money on him. He has 6 months until he can start negotiating with other teams, because by the summer he's going to be allowed to negotiate with other teams. He's allowed to sign pre-contracts with other teams, and he is going to be you already know he was interested in leaving G2. You know he can leave for free in essentially 6 months. He can leave for no, and you get absolutely nothing for it. And what you're left with is Malbs and potentially HeavyGod as your star riflers. And you're probably looking at a shuffle season where you need to replace. Anyway, what they're doing is they are gambling on the spring season. Like, I think G2 need to win the Austin Major to keep m0NESY. I think even if they go to the grand final and lose, I think m0NESY still leaves on a free, because the Falcons offer is always going to be on the table. Like, Digster has absolutely no way of competing with Monacy if Monacy is available. Like Digster, it honestly almost doesn't matter how well Digster plays this year. If Monacy becomes available, he's still getting replaced. And even if Falcons isn't even an option, maybe if Falcons is a much less attractive option by then, maybe they end up being absolutely dog shit all year, and you don't want to go there. Even then, he has other options. Like I think Navi would potentially be interested in Monacy. Like even with the Russian question. I think there's a lot of other teams. Like every team would be interested in Monacy for free. Like that's ridiculous. Imagine Vitality like putting in Monacy and putting Zaibu on a rifle. That's insane. Like there's so many insane things that can happen. G2 are gambling on having a good enough spring season and taking a leap forward without Nico to convince Monacy to stay. That's what they're doing. And I'm not sure if that's gonna work. It's a crazy gamble.
It's a gamble, but the other option is basically concede all trophies from now until Nico retires.
Yeah, and
essentially,
make a fuck ton of money.
allow Falcons to win everything from here on out is essentially the other option. Despite getting $5 million, all of a sudden you have to basically your Counter-Strike team becomes your league team. Oh, sick!
Yeah,
we have fans. Never going to win the Worlds, though, are we? We just never are, because we're not the Koreans. In this case, it'd be because we're not Falcons, who we've given all of our best players to. Like, that would be absurd. So, no, I think it's fair enough in that sense. Nah, it's not really to me. Like, gambling on keeping a player because you can make more signings and try to improve your roster isn't that crazy. Especially if that player is the second best player in the world, at worst, you know?
But it's also like I think they need to extend Monacy's contract in the spring season, because otherwise the other component is how can you get other players to G2 with the knowledge that Monacy can leave on a free in 6 months? Like if the appeal is playing with Monacy, Jimpad obviously wanted to play with Monacy. There is an obvious appeal to play with Monacy with a lot of players. If you're trying to get those people to G2 and you've had a not so good spring season, and Monacy ends up saying, Monacy ends up being negotiating with other teams. He ends up not extending his G2 contract. He is gonna leave at the end of 2025. How many players can you actually get to G2 at that point? So it's a gamble that makes sense. Like with the option of just giving Falcons an amazing player and getting a bunch of money. Like for the difference between Heroic and G2 is, for Heroic, $5 million is a lot of money. For G2, I wouldn't say it's a drop in the ocean. It's still a huge amount of money. But since they're in so many games and it's such a big operation, it's not exactly... For Heroic, it's money which is huge. Like just a year ago, they were actively looking for funding at risk of shutting down. $5 million is huge for that. G2, it's not here nor there, but it's more of a marginal change compared to the company as a whole. So, like you said, the alternative is the Falcons just win everything, and G2 end up being around. So they made the right decision, but it's a gamble which it's gonna be difficult for them, and especially I would feel a lot more confident in them being able to have a good enough spring season to convince Monacy to stay if they had different leadership.
Yeah.
Because they need to do it in the spring season. Like the first 6 months of the year are first and foremost what matters to G2. If they fail in Austin, there's no thinking about, well, maybe we win Budapest. No, they need the spring season. Otherwise, Monacy is going to sign a pre-contract with either Falcons or a different team at some point in September, October, at the latest.
Yeah, they are in for a difficult year, but it's essentially the options do come down to try or resign. Like, there's no third choice. You have to try this, or you have to just resign yourself. It's pretty much as simple as it is. But all right, let's try and talk about other stuff, because if we spent 20 minutes on every roster move, this episode would never end. Heroic have announced nothing. It's been reported, to fill in all the blanks, they'll be signing the core of Sangal in Linus, Youngster, and Xfloud. They'll also be adding Sampius and Nilo, at least according to the shortlist / most convincing reporting, let's put it that way. I've put out an entire video on this, so refer to that if you want my take on it. Quacke, what is your opinion of this roster move? How much do you rate it?
Oh, I love it. It's we've talked at length about Sangal. It's one of my favorite teams of this year. They've managed to pick up 3. I mean, they're missing out on Jota, obviously. Eternal Fire make the obvious decision to call him back to on his loan, call him back to Eternal Fire. But they're still getting 3 very good players. One of the reasons why Sangal was perhaps less of an attractive core to some of the other teams is that for a team who was replacing 3 players specifically, you also needed to get Samey, because you had to get the offer. Like if let's say Falcons didn't manage to negotiate this deal with Heroic, then now we know that the Sangal core was on the table. Well, they would have had to get Samey because they needed an offer. The alternative was to play no op. But so that would have been a difficult situation. But Heroic, like they find themselves with a blank slate because Shush, as the one remaining player of their roster, reportedly has also been allowed to explore his options, and instead they can get an IGL, an anchor, and sort of an entry kind of player. I've struggled to put Xfloud and Jota's roles into context when I've been watching them, but like yeah, an opener kind of player, and built from scratch basically. So and they've done a really good job. That is the perfect way to do it in the new 2025 onwards scene. So that, yeah, the reported roster is Senpaias and Nilo. They haven't really broken the bank on this. I would honestly, like, since they're supposedly getting Senpaias from Falcons, who have already paid them $5 million, I'm assuming Senpaias is either included in that transfer. Like, it's not exactly like they have to pay a transfer fee for Senpaias because they're getting a transfer fee from Falcons. So I'm assuming that's included. And then Nilo is expensive, like for the kind of operation that Medisport are running, for the kind of level of competition they're at. Nilo is expensive, but it's not like the absolute highest amount I can see Heroic having paid for Nilo, if this is true, is like $150,000 to $200,000. I don't think Medisport are even able to ask much more. He has 1 year left on his contract, which he extended earlier in 2025. So if this happens, Nilo is gone from Medisport and he goes to Heroic instead. They've done this really cheaply, and they managed to like put, well, I'm assuming about $5 million into the bank, along with another sale, which adds another couple $100,000 probably. So yeah, they end up in a very good situation. This is not a team which is going to challenge for trophies. I think you said this in your video as well. Like,
out of the gate, it'll be difficult just because they are picking up a top 25 VRS team, but it's not, high enough to guarantee invites to every single event. From what I understand of the system, and also they are signing a young core, a young player, and an AWPer who needs to get back into shape. As well as saying they just need to maintain themselves like within touching distance of major qualification directly, if possible, for the fall season, and try to get a direct invite to Budapest, or at least in some way attend Budapest. It is confirmed, the Budapest major, right?
It's just strongly rumored. It's
strongly
like
rumored.
I think Sheep Esports reported it, so it's like that's Sheep have a good track record. It's probably happening.
Would be cool, but more importantly,
yeah,
they need to stay within major contention. That's how it should work, and then they can think about which players are working, which players aren't, if they need to, going into the season after that. But out of the gate, it's just about keeping in the sort of relevant range.
Yeah, they're 23rd in the Valve ranking right now. I think Katowice invites, if they haven't already gone out, I think they're going out any day based on when Blast Bounty shipped their invites. I can't do the math in my head when they need to be sent out, but like Katowice is less than a month away, so I'm pretty sure the invites have to be sent out in the next couple of days. And it's not like Sangal are gonna, it's not like this core are gonna drop out of that range. So I'm gonna say they're gonna be at both Blast Bounty and Katowice, which are the 2 events we know about right now. And I'd say they have some of, like, they're going to be in the play-in of Katowice, and I'm looking at some of the opposition they might play. Like, they might end up playing a team like Liquid. That's kind of rough, but they also, like, they're gonna face up against like Saw without U-Jerks and Aerosdoce. They might play against Big without Rigon and Sears, like whoever they end up adding, they might play against them. FlyQuest, Astralis as well, kind of weekend right now. There's a bunch of teams that are definitely beatable for them, which I think could put them into the main event. And if they do, I think that's another like 2 or 3 ranking spots. And Blast Bounty is a whole different thing. It's a crazy format. It's a 32 team single elimination bracket where the lower seeded teams get to pick their opponents, which is kind of awesome. But like it's it's going to be crazy. It's going to be cutthroat. We're going to have some. I think it's going to feel a little bit like when you have like the FA Cup or the League Cup in football, where like you end up having two championship teams who play each other in the semifinal or something. Like you end up having a slightly weird seeding where like Premier League opposition play themselves in the round of 16, but then you have the second division play themselves, like they play the final. You like, yeah, that's how like Coventry end up in the semifinal. But yeah, it's gonna feel a bit like that, and I'm actually excited about that. But yeah, Heroic have a good chance. Like they have a good chance of getting themselves into the top 16. The top 16 is where you need to be to get to most tier 1 events, because most events have 16 spots, obviously. So that would have been great for them to do. There's also a bunch of like more forgiving lands. Like I think ESL Pro League obviously has a lot more spots. I think they have 24 teams in total. So and yeah, Heroic already have a spot there because Sangal won ECL.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so they have every if they perform well, they have every opportunity of being directly invited to into the Austin Major. We also had news that there are going to be some sort of RMR qualifiers for they're called MRQs, and they may be online. So it says maybe online, which I think is just really weird, but it could mean that we have an RMR but online. Like we've just cut out the RMR and we have just a close qualifier. And there, they absolutely have a chance. They're probably one of the favorite teams to go through there. So yeah, Heroic probably being at the Austin Major. You said in the video that might peak at like top 10, top 15 level for this season.
Yeah, I mean, if it develops as expected, they should be... Honestly, by fall, they could be back where they were with this roster. Like, if the players are as good as I expect them to be, because I rate Nilo, I rate the Sangal core. I think some Pius actually showed not an exactly bad level. I mean, for the year at big events, his KPR matches Orpa's like Wonderful and Torji, and actually might be like a fraction above them even. Like he didn't exactly shit the bed. He just didn't have the best coach, the best IGL, walking him through fucking every game. So yeah. I think there's something to be said about some Pius coming into this team as not a complete dud.
Final note: we don't know who the coach is going to be, but as much as the Linus Jumpy combination really worked, I don't really see a reason to cut Saw. He's a really great coach. And Sun Pius being reunited with Saw, that's probably taking him a step over what he did in Falcons. I think imagine what Nilo can do, as much as I think Abdi has done a good job with Medisport. I wonder what sort of development he could have under someone like Saw. Youngster as well. Really solid anchor for Sangal this year. And he's going to square up to Shush, obviously, but it's like that's who he's going to be compared to. But like, imagine what he can do under someone like Saw, Linus. We've already seen a lot of promise. There's a lot of, as much as the Sangal core was like top 20 at best for this year, maybe.
Yeah, at best.
There, with someone like Saw coming in, who, let's face it, he's done this before. What sort of step up can you have there? So I do kind of hope Saw stays on, but yeah, that could be interesting. It could be really interesting, and long term. What are they, like 23 on average? I think Sun Pius is going to be the oldest player. And he's not ridiculously old either.
He's 26.
Yeah. And then the rest, like Youngster is 21, I think. 20, sorry. And Linus is also 22. And X-Cloud is 23 or something. Yeah, 22.
Yeah, they're a younger team. That was part of my point, was that they do have a lot of... It's not like they're a pure academy side. They're not that young. But they're young enough to where you can say, like, yeah, there's going to be some development that can still be expected. And bringing a guy like Nilo, whatever the hell, though, he's got a lot more in front of him than these other players do. And he's already shown us quite a high level. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. If you're, for some reason, just a Heroic fan, I mean, if you're just a fan of Counter-Strike, yeah, it's a pretty well thought out move. Pretty interesting team. Let's see where it heads up. The next big one is that FaZe are reportedly, although they have just now said goodbye to Rops, so we know that part of it's true. Adding EliGE to replace Rops, another move that I have already covered and discussed fairly in depth in the Rostermania grades video. But I'll just quickly summarize it. I think it's the perfect addition for basically a star duo of riflers who were too passive, replacing one of them with the one who's been aggressive the entirety of last year. And on a team that desperately needed carrying, he was able to carry. Sure, he didn't carry them to title after title after title. To be fair, when stuck with that group, how could you expect anyone to do that? So, EliGE for FaZe, I think it's pretty perfect for them. The question is, how much better have they gotten relative to how much better their competition's got? You know, and which teams you think maybe have gotten worse. But that's for later. I think those are basically my takes. Like, this is the right move. But Quacke, where do you see their ceiling? How many titles do you think this team wins next year? How many Chengdus do they win?
There was an interesting point on talking counter because Moses obviously worked with EliGE when he was coaching Liquid. And I think he has, I'm not going to say like outright negative opinions, but he has opinions on how EliGE works in a team. And he made an interesting point that like, as soon as EliGE comes into this team, there's like a ticking timer before like his personality and his opinions start taking over in a way which can really conflict with some people. I'm assuming like there's absolutely no reason why Kerrigan hasn't been able to deal with this before. Like but it's that could be a risk for them. I don't think it's a huge risk, but that was something he said. It's like there is a ticking timer. Like they need to start doing well. They probably need to step up from the 2024 season sooner rather than later, because like EliGE is coming in here to win trophies. He's coming in, he said it himself. He is coming in here because he wants to win the biggest events in 2025. And I think he would be satisfied with winning, you know, an IEM Rio and an IEM Chengdu. I think he would be fine with that for his first year. But like long term, he wants to win a major with FaZe.
Yeah, that's basically what he hasn't won, right? Like, he won everything with Liquid in a 6-month span.
Yeah, did they win? Yeah, they won Cologne.
Yeah, he's won a prestige event. They won a bunch of other big events. He just hasn't won a major. He's sure he hasn't won Katowice either, but
yeah, he hasn't won Katowice.
In terms of priorities, next thing's the major.
He's won a Grand Slam. He's won a Grand Slam. I think did they maybe even win 2? I'm not even sure. No, Twist has won 2. No, sorry, it's Twists. He's won 2 Grand Slams. I think he's the only person who's done that. So anyway,
probably.
Yeah, it's a great move. It's an amazing move. But yeah, we've talked about before how like EliGE probably, I don't know, with Kerrigan, I don't think it's an issue with him like taking over the team. But long term, he has expectations. Like he has pretty big expectations. If stuff doesn't happen in 25, then maybe we're looking at even bigger cuts in FaZe. Like we're looking at a pretty bigger restructuring. Maybe around EliGE. Maybe EliGE ends up hopping again. But I'm also curious about like, because this is going to be a role change, right, for EliGE. He's going to play quite differently than he's done in Complexity, right?
It shouldn't really be. Because if they're not being ridiculous, you are going to let EliGE take sort of, not the reins of the team, but you're going to let him take his sort of playstyle and just implement it, then figure out everything else around him. So, sorry, if Rain and Kerrigan still want to be, 26% type opening attempt rate players, why fucking sign EliGE? Like, this is definitely going to change how the team plays. I assume it's going to be to the detriment of Rain. Womp womp so. At this point. Like, he's not been a star for a long time. Why fucking bother keeping him taking all the fights he wants? Give EliGE his spots, give EliGE his moments, his right to call his own number, and then figure everything else out. Because no, the team wasn't good enough last year, and we always focus on the passive duo, as we call them, and then occasionally on Mr. AWP Rifle Brokey, who has his flaws, let's put it that way. But one of the big issues they do have is that they don't have an aggressive star on the rifles, and that's not just because their stars are passive, it's also because Rain isn't good enough. If Rain was playing EliGE level Counter-Strike last year, they probably win a handful of tournaments. They probably win one of their major finals they play in. So I do think there's something to be said for them not only being too passive, but also just not being good enough. So yeah, no reason to take away from EliGE's game. They need to make the concessions to make him work.
Yeah, all right. Good move in that case.
If they do it, then yeah. If they don't do it, then fucking wasting my time.
I think they're going to do... I think it's pretty much locked in at this point. I don't see...
No, I mean, if they don't change anything. Like, in terms of how they play. Like if they make the signing just to make him play as the same way as Rops, kill me. Like just kill me.
I guess it depends on like what sort of respect Rain commands. Like I don't like, or with like how highly Kerrigan and Neo think of Rain. I would assume it comes down to because if they think Rain can. Because EliGE has the mechanics, like he can play Rop's positions and he wouldn't be shit. I just don't think that like you're getting EliGE to extract the best out of him, and you might as well maybe maybe Frozen can slide into some more of the Rop spots. Yeah. I don't know, like
Frozen, go do something, please, anything. Go be Rops, like, go be something else. Whatever you've been, it's just not working. It works for getting you on the HLTV top 20. Shit all else. Please go do something else and win some events.
Yeah. Fucking yeah. I'll take. I think they can really squeeze a lot out of EliGE, and in that sort of role shift, I think they can also squeeze more out of Frozen. So good job.
Yeah.
Check.
Liquid. Goodbye, Yakindar, and all of North America celebrates. Hello, NertZ. I think NA still celebrates. The problem they do have here is that, well, we've got a bit of a logjam here of players who aren't entries now, and that was the problem with Liquid. You kind of needed Yakindar because no one else could ever match his volume on this team. Like your JKS people, I've seen a couple people on Twitter like, oh yeah, use JKS like FaZe did in that one event he stood in. And I was like, that's not a long-term solution. That's why he was a stand-in. That's just not going to work. So they do seem to be lacking a bit of aggression on the team now, with NertZ coming in, just because NertZ, whilst he is, an opener / space taker / rotator, in a lot of ways, he is a bit more old school about it. He's a little more controlled. Like he plays to a different tempo than Yakindar did. And the rounds don't last 3 minutes 50. We aren't playing the campaign of Condition 0. Like you can't shift walk everywhere the entire time and still make it a viable tactic. So I do think they're going to have some problems with that. Yeah. Cool to lose your Kindar's dead weight, but come on. I need another move. I don't know about you, Quack, but I need another move for this roster to really impress me.
Couldn't Twist do a lot of the opening work? I feel like he's been quite an opening player in the past.
He's been a hard entry on Liquid when his numbers and mental health suffered. He's been a trader on FaZe, for fuck's sake. Does no one remember Prime FaZe? Like, I swear, I've seen this. People say this a lot. Like, oh, on FaZe, he was done it before. No, but I'm addressing the population. He wasn't a hard openings guy on FaZe. Like, he just wasn't. He played over the shoulder of Rain and Carrigan. That's it. Yes, you could force someone to go do it. The point is, you don't have anyone who naturally does it right now.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
That's the issue.
That could end up being interesting. But it's a good move. It's a really good move. I think Yakindar being cut, I think that's actually quite interesting. Yakindar is a solid player. I think he didn't really
Until
show
SnapTap comes back, that's not true.
No, I mean, what I just mean is like there's a reason he was signed in the first place. There's a reason, like, I think Prime Yakindar is a bit overhyped because I think a lot of people remember Prime Yakindar as being the 125 rated player that he was on VP. The only thing is he has never showed that on LAN. He's never showed that on the biggest events. His best period in VP was online. That's when he was at his best, and that's when they were at their best. Yeah. I still think he's solid. Like he's like under Jame, he still put up like a 110. Like he was still able to put like a 110 at big events. That's fine. In the few
he was a good player still on LAN in the Jame system.
Yeah,
but also in the Jame era, playing the different game.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But like, I think there's still value you can have somewhere. I'm slightly disappointed that NIP haven't potentially picked him up, because if they picked him up, that would have given them a wildcard invite for Best Bounty.
Okay, that's where you're going with this. I was like,
there's that. I think he's decent enough where he could, he could take a spot on the team, but also he brings with him the potential for a wildcard invite, because we're going to get to the rumors roster that NIP are probably picking up.
Yeah, we will get to it. Yeah,
but for now they don't have that. at all of that, which I sort of like. Why don't you have that? There's definitely players you could pick up for that. But yeah, I'm also like he hasn't been linked to Perivision. I think that would have been an awesome move. Jame and Jakindar back on Perivision, especially as Patsy's out. That's perfect. Like,
Yep.
but yeah.
To be fair, we don't have that much rumored for Perivision, do we? Like,
no,
that's still technically a possibility.
Yeah, but I would have wanted that. Like, yeah, he. I just remember the good old days, as in 2020, when Jakindar was dropping openings like art and was still popping a 125 rating. Was sweet, but we're not getting that. Anyway, NertZ is better. But like, I don't think his period on Liquid is really gonna tarnish Jakindar that much. Like in the long term, I think Jakindar still has a spot. Maybe not as a potential major champion, but as some like a bit more of a workhorse player. And I think I think it would be a shame if he gets passed over by some teams who could use him because of the Liquid period. Because I think he's still like, as somebody who played at a very high level under one sort of system, then really didn't work under a different sort of system and in a different sort of time. Could be interesting. I don't know. I just think Jakindar should be somewhere. I think, but I don't think he will be. He hasn't been linked anywhere, and I don't really see a place where he could end up at this point. I would have liked NIP. It gives him a wildcard invite.
Here's the issue. He comes into Liquid, and he does immediately, we all address this, seem to fix a lot of their problems when he comes into Liquid. Remember this time period where it wasn't really working, EliGE wasn't playing that well, and there's a lot of chatter about EliGE also being a bit of a problem in terms of how the team synergizes and certain aspects of the calling. Jakindar comes in, second calls, he starts getting a lot of credit for like adding ideas and all this other stuff, and it goes great. The problem is, in the last 3 months, he's got a firepower of 12 by firepower rating. And you're like, it's not possible to not tarnish your legacy and your standing with this kind of play. He's dying in absurdly embarrassing numbers on the openings front. And on T side especially, over a quarter of rounds, he's just dead first. And it's not like this team are trading him like crazy. Like they trade his deaths to a decent rate, but not good enough to make them a legit like threat. So there's a real question mark as to where he can probably go. Like in the scene, that's a good move for him and his career without having to grind all the way back up. This is going to take a tank. Be it be a tank commander for the NIP, be it a complete restart in the Russian scene or the Russian-speaking scene with Parivision. It's not going to be fun, and it is entirely because his standing has been absolutely destroyed by his play. His play's been terrible. But I think we need to focus on this on the Liquid side quickly. Like just wrap up, Quack. If you had to make another change, what would you make happen for Liquid?
That's really hard. I think the only way I see another change happening is if somebody else was also leaving for Europe or something. Like if NAF was also going to Europe, or if Ultimate got picked up by a team who need an op or something like that. I don't see. It's kind of weird because I don't see justification for anybody to get benched here, and I don't think there's a slam dunk signing for an opener you can put in.
I mean, you don't need an opener who's going to take opening jewels in the star sense. You just need a hard entry, really. You need a
and you could take JKS for that, I guess. But I also just it would kind of suck for JKS, wouldn't it? Like, who would you put in if you were cutting?
Yeah, JKS's feelings are hurt. Damn, guess I don't want to win championships. What do you mean?
I think he's just done a good enough job. It's like,
don't bring
it would kind of suck.
I've already had enough of people in my comments mistaking JKS for some great player. Oh god.
I think he's fine. Who would you put in though? Like, is there anyone you could off the top of your head?
I mean, in my own video, I literally said, "Give me HooXi." Take Twist off calling because HooXi's a free agent, and it's literally free to get better at this point.
Yeah, I'd take that.
Sure, we might get the occasional Maui Snake breakdown of how HooXi's entry pathing, but like, if that's the worst that happens, like,
sorry, that makes Liquid a European team though.
Oh no! Guess you'll have to earn your way to the major. Ain't that a shame?
Actually, an
Good thing
interesting.
you're already a top 10 team.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter at this point because, especially with no RMRs, unless they massively drop in the rankings, there's really no point to keep this. And
Doesn't
aside from
Israel count as
optics,
Middle East Asia though?
Oh, it does. No, sorry, no.
I mean, they play in it.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it does. Okay, sorry.
So yeah, you still have your gimmicky way of making the majors because you.
Oh my god, region. They are gonna be AMAS. That's insane. They're gonna be on the Americas and the Asian ranking. Oh, yep. they could take Mongols as major spot. Holy shit! I really hope they don't do that. I hope they stay on the American ranking because they could take Mongols as major spot for Austin, and Mongols would have to slog through the fucking major regional qualifier. Oh my god! I hope they don't do that. I hope they don't do that. Please, Joker Steve, don't do that.
Fucking do it. All right. But yeah, that's the idea that I had was quite simple.
Yeah,
honestly.
Fair, yeah.
May not be a viable option to them in their minds, but that's how I think it should be done. G2, the talk of the summer. Because that's roughly when we found out about NiKo definitely happening again. Yep. He's gone. We've had the goodbye. All the tears have been shed. I mean, not by me, but I'm sure someone did cry. And now they are rumored to be replacing NiKo with HeavyGod, with Cloud9 about to basically shatter into 1 million pieces. Or, well, 5. But still. I think it's a pretty good move. I've said as much. G2 adding HeavyGod was a part of the script at one point for how to replace NiKo. Yep. The reason I cut it is because I thought there were, honestly, just more slam dunk options. But he was a part of the group of like, probably cheaper, but definitely really good sort of ideas I had. There were some other questionable ideas in there, but I want to say your take again, because whilst we're still talking about big things, I've talked about most of these big moves in their own videos. So how much do you rate HeavyGod, and do you think this matches up? Like, do you think this fits with the team?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's kind of a Malbs-ish move in a way, because it's like you're getting a really good talent who could be really good in the future. Coming in, not necessarily to be the high-pressure guy. He's kind of coming in. He is... I mean, ideally, with the spots he plays, I think he should be the 4th best player, but the way he plays them, he's going to be expected to be the 3rd best player. He's going to be expected to outperform Hunter. But he's coming in with... There's still a lot of pressure. Like, G2 have to win, but like he's coming in with a bit less pressure. He's not directly directly feeling the shoes of NiKo. That's what Mobs is going to do. So it's I think they've done a good job here. I think it's honestly, if Jimmy said no, which he reportedly did, I think this might be the best option that they could have gone for. I can't think of anybody who would immediately slot in much better here, who was like realistic. So yeah, fair. I could have been more happy with the G2 roster if they made more cuts. Like I would have seen a different. I would have liked to see a different IGL. I would have liked to see a different, maybe even a Hunter replacement if you really wanted to go hard on this. I'm actually kind of surprised they aren't really doing that, because like you could probably cut Hunter for Spinks is out there. I don't know if that's a slam dunk move. Rops. Here's the funny thing. All season I've been saying I could see Rops leaving FaZe if he's not happy with how their season has gone, and everybody said no, Rops is going to stay on, and even if he wants to leave, he's going to be too expensive. Rops has left. G2 could have had Rops. They've been interested in him before. If you could have had a Rops or a Spinks as coming in for Hunter, this could have been redonk, I think. But even now, I think it's really good. So I'm kind of surprised, like with how hard they're gambling on the next 6 months. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't try to break the bank and get an even better player in place of Hunter. But they're apparently happy. HeavyGod is good. I like HeavyGod. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't really get how G2 still have Hunter, really. Like, given his play again, holy shit, it's been terrible. He's one of those players who kind of slumped into having entrying stats just because he doesn't kill anyone, but then someone else will kill them straight afterwards. It's not like he's actually being really set up to be an entry player who's traded. He just ends up not winning his fights, but someone else does. And that's kind of bad. Let's be honest. No, I have 2 cuts I still want to make just in the playing roster, and a third I want to make at the coach if I'm idealizing my G2 roster.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird they didn't
rough.
do that. It's kind of weird to me they didn't do that considering how much this season is going to matter. But I mean, they haven't, so eh.
But those become
anyway.
the point. Like, they can only cut so many players, and
Yeah.
Well,
you could definitely cut at least one. I can understand why you want to carry on with Snacks and Taz if you feel you have a good thing going. Then maybe you want to keep that continuity going. But you could have cut Hunter. I mean,
yeah, just by himself. Yeah,
yeah. And if you really wanted to stack your odds for this season, because this is the only season which is going to matter, like it's the only season which is guaranteed to matter for your team, I kind of wanted to cut Hunter. So yeah. Anyway, it's HeavyGod is a good move. I think we need to move this along because we're already like almost an hour in, and we have so many fucking roster moves.
Vitality have not confirmed, but are going to be replacing Spinks with Rops.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You have 30 seconds. Tell me why this makes Vitality an era-defining team next year.
Rops is good, and I think what he showed in FaZe might have been, like what he showed in Shanghai might have been something of a feeling like, all right, this is like the last dance. I'm just going to go out and play my heart out and like be that sort of thing. I think he has been frustrated with the level FaZe have had this year. I think he's been frustrated with himself. I think maybe he's felt he didn't really fit in anymore. And I think Vitality could be a nice breath of fresh air for him. But I think the more interesting point is now Spinks is still absolutely not linked anywhere. Spinks, for now, Spinks is looking like he's going to be teamless in the spring season.
Yeah, he will end up somewhere. That's what I can guarantee you, because he's not bad enough to just go from Vitality to nothing. It's just weird thinking where he's going to go, because yeah, there's not been a rumor. Okay, he's just going to end up on Big, isn't he?
Very well could. I don't see a German-speaking transfer. I think Big are going international.
He's just going to end up on Big. He's either going to end up on Big or Fnatic somehow. Like that's the move. Like there's no other way.
Could NIP go for him?
Could have.
That's another wild card spot for you. I hope fuck. Okay, we're gonna talk about NIP later, but I tweeted at Eric Vendel and because I questioned like, oh, didn't you say miss the future, and are you getting snappy after 3 months? And he said like, oh, we're gonna explain everything next week when everything is finalized. And I'm really hoping they address the issue of why didn't you get Spinks, why didn't you get the Kindar, why didn't you get fucking HeavyGod out there now? Like, why didn't you get these players who would have given you wildcard invites, and now instead you have to play online and Sky Esports shit. But yeah, anyway, that's a different point.
Because they love their sweet rice, man. They love their sweet rice. Anyway. No, Vitality, I think, have made the right move in terms of an addition. I think this allows them to, again, just like G2 have done a bit, like unlock your rifler who's stuck in shit CT roles but is kind of carrying you on T side. Like, give him the right to be a star both sides of the game.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. And yeah, Rops, now you've got yourself a firepower guy. You got ZywOo. Please go win events. That'd be fun.
There is no reason why Vitality shouldn't win. Honestly, if you're Vitality, I don't see a reason why Vitality shouldn't win at least 2 big events in 2025. You could honestly say there's no reason why Vitality shouldn't win the first major. To be honest, they have a good enough team to do it. The only reason is others are better.
We're going to talk about this, but there are only so many teams who realistically should be in conversations for winning the Austin Major. And Vitality were, without making a change, realistically, their ceiling is major winning. It's just about the fact that they constantly fall short of expectation and their own level. But no, they, even with this change, will still be in that zone. Probably, hopefully for them, have a higher floor. Because last year they spent a lot of time going out in quarterfinals, or IEM equivalent of quarterfinals.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see them actually go all the way.
Yep.
All right, our final roster move before we change things up, just to give us some break from the tedium. It's VirtusPro. They have added, well, they've made a bunch of changes. most notably, they lost Jame and Norbert. They are signing Icy and Flamus.
Mm.
And I've given my thoughts on some of this, like the aspect of moving to electronics, the IGL, the talent of the players coming in. It's very, very electronic dependent, though, isn't it? Like, if you believe in electronic as a caller and the system he can implement, you kind of have the talented players to make it work. It's just, is he the IGL you see going forward, leading a team deep into playoffs? Like, or is this just going to be more VirtusPro?
I'd like this move if it was anybody other than Electronic IGLing, and if it was any other team than VirtusPro, because I think this is a really nice move on paper. Getting Icy and Flamus for Jame and Norbert is great heading into 2025. Because as much as Jame was fine, he wasn't exactly in his peak form as an opper, and as much as I think Norbert historically is a fine enough support player, I think Flamus is just so much better, or has been so much better in terms of, performing under pressure and like performing at the major. Bit of a revelation in 2024. So I would like this more if it was any other team than VP, because first of all, Electronic, I don't trust this in-game leadership. I don't trust it at all. I think he screwed up Cloud9. I think he I can, yeah, he didn't have an opper for sections of it, but it's like weird. Actually, no, he wasn't calling then. It was Boomage. That's why they didn't have an opper. But anyway, it's to the point where Shiro benched himself. Like, the Electronics leadership led to Shiro benching himself. I don't know if that was the direct cause, but anyway. I don't trust him. He doesn't exactly have a great track record. If this VP team is successful with Electronic as the helm, that is a deviation from the trend, I would say. And also, like, Flamus comes in with a lot of energy, and I don't know if that's what VP need or if that's going to be a big mismatch. Because Flamus comes in, he's one of my favorite players at this point of this year, because there are so many funny clips where he's like joking around with his team. Like, he's really funny in interviews, he's really funny in all of this, like all of this stuff. VP are not that team. Like, VP have always been very, very, very Russian. It feels like how people would describe like Soviet ice hockey teams in the 80s and 90s, like how they're just so like stone cold, ice cold faced, and like just go out, perform. They've trained their entire life under like to do this, and then they go out and do it. So I don't know, for that, Flamus feels like a mismatch, but it might be the energy they need to like fire up some players, because Fame and Flit aren't really there right now, and like IC is going to be under a bit more pressure, and like maybe Electronic needs like that extra. I'm not going to say captaincy from Flamus, but like more, somebody for the team to gather around, so to speak. A personality to like.
Here's where you're completely barking up the wrong tree. There's one problem here.
Yeah.
Electronic existed prior to VirtusPro. And Electronic prior to VirtusPro was loud, braggadocious, obnoxious, shit talk. He was everything you've just described, but the opposite. Like, he's just complete opposite. On Flip side, he's screaming. On Na'Vi, he's screaming. He's shouting.
I've never seen him smile. I didn't
say smiling. I said loud. I said emotional. Right, yeah. Like, these are not things. He was not stoic. And if you ever listen to Na'Vi comms, it's basically Electronic and Simple screaming at each other. Like, in Cyrillic. Like, it's just non-stop. And I feel like in that sense, Flamus might just be a part of a culture shift, like an overall culture shift. Sure, we have never seen Fame and Flit like super expressive.
No, and they're definitely still part of it. And like I see the same.
We've only really seen them in the public eye under the Jame era.
Yeah.
And that's a key difference, I think. This is just players we're going to see now in a new light. I mean, sure, we saw Fame online, right? On various teams, and we saw Flit, again, not really at big lands. We'll see them in a completely different way, and this is a complete tonal shift in terms of the culture of the team. So I think we have to throw those expectations out the window, and the anticipation of a culture clash probably won't exist, because the culture will be set by Electronic And if Flamus is able to NG match, this is just the right team for him. I don't. The only problem I have with this roster overall really is again the quality of the calling, and also how the roles are all going to work in terms of who's playing the shit spots. Like on T side, I get Electronic wants to hard entry, and that Fame and Flick can take passive lurk positions at various times. But on the CT side, do I have an anchor I rely on? Because Norbert, I actually could. Like Norbert, as much as he got memed on, was a pretty solid anchor for them for the majority of the year. Like better than Magic's, who end up winning 3 events. You know, he was actually for the majority of the year a better anchor than a lot of tier 1 teams actually had. So I think that's the question mark. What's exciting is, as I said, this could be the return of the envious Death Ball, which was one of the greatest eras of CSGO. The envious Kiyoshima MBK Apex trio running through people with Kenny S just popping over their shoulders to take fucking scalps, and then Happy just shift walking the other side of the map. Like, it was a very unique style, but it was very fun, especially the entry side of that core trio just ripping things up.
Yeah.
If we can get something resembling that again, it's going to be some of the best CS to watch. Maybe not in terms of like theoretical quality, but in terms of in your face, smack mouth CS, it'll just be entertaining.
Yeah. I don't know. With the risk of the culture, I think there is a risk of a culture clash, because as much as culture is dictated by the leaders in the team, you know, Fame and Flit, they might completely disagree with it. Who knows? Or maybe they absolutely agree with it and unlock something. There's a risk. And also, like Electronic, he did outright clash with James' style and leadership, and that's why we've ended up in this position. So we'll just sort of see what happens. But I like the move on paper. I don't trust Electronic as a caller.
Yeah.
If it's gonna work,
that'll be the question, won't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because it didn't work on Cloud9. I think he did it for like a couple of maps here and there on Navi. I seem to remember Blade saying in interviews, like, before Navi were really good, they were like trying out like, oh yeah, Electronic has been calling this event instead of Boomage because we wanted to try something different. But then they obviously reverted. And if this is the third time's the charm, he has literally pushed out Jame of the team to take this spot. I don't know. I feel like he might be taking on too much, because he also pushed out Nafany out of Cloud9. He wasn't there at the same time, but what was reported was that Electronic, a literal precondition for him joining the team was that he was going to be the caller and Nafany would leave the team. So it's a bit, yeah. I'll see. It feels like he's taking a lot of, like, he's demanding quite a lot to be the caller and to be the caller who makes stuff happen with really no resume to speak for it. So we're gonna see. Maybe it's dog shit, at which point no idea what happens. I wouldn't be too upset if VP end up not being a good team in 2025. I'm not a huge fan of them, so we'll see. It's good players on paper. Let's move on to other stuff.
Yeah, let's do some predictions. Let's let you make some predictions. You've promised me something big. If you disappoint, it's going to be quite a letdown for me personally. I mean, no one else got given as much reason to be excited, but I did. So let me know. Quacke, what do you think is going to happen? Make a prediction, any prediction for 2025.
I've been juggling how big of a prediction this actually is, because in one way I can see this being a huge, like, whoa, this is completely unlikely. But it's kind of like, maybe in a month's time, this feels like a really easy slam dunk. But I'm going to say a North American team play in the grand final of the Austin Major. That's what I'm going to say.
So Liquid?
I'm not sure I count Liquid. But I probably have to, because my other option is Wildcard, and they have the same.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's not that
That's
many.
The thing. That's the thing. Like, at this point, I would absolutely not put Liquid in the in the grand final of the Austin Major. But it's also like 3 games away from happening at the Major, and like in a month's time, maybe Liquid are like a top 5 side. Like, once we've had Blast Bounty and Katowice, maybe Liquid are literal Katowice champions. In which case, it's not actually a big prediction. So I might revise this, and I might say we have 2 North American teams in the playoffs. That's what I'm gonna say. Liquid +1, Furia, and other Brazilian teams don't count.
Okay.
Yeah. That I think is big because that's counting on
It's
like
a huge
complexity.
prediction, and
That's counting on complexity being good with dogshit players. That's counting on M80 getting their shit together and actually qualifying. That's counting on wildcard, continuing their upwards trend. So I'm gonna say two North American teams are in the playoffs in the Austin Major.
Okay. I'll give you points for boldness, but I don't even think we have a guarantee of Liquid being in those playoffs. So the fact that wildcard or M80 or somehow Cole has to join them, not going to happen.
I didn't go bold enough last year, so
True.
I'm going bold this year. Yeah.
To be fair, last year your initial prediction was terrible.
Big
I forced
have a good year.
So I forced you to make it a good prediction, like a bolder prediction, and you
Yeah.
did. But still, your initial prediction wasn't good because they didn't have a good year at all, even in the most generic, emptiest sense. It was awful year round.
There's no way to spin it as a good year. Yeah.
Is there anything I can actually predict? Because when I look at what's coming and what I think's going to happen, I need to look at the calendar quickly to make sure this is logical.
Yeah, okay, so I can keep talking about mine then. I'm not counting Brazilian teams, I think, because I think that would have been too easy. Furia and Liquid both making playoffs is significantly more realistic than what I've actually predicted. Complexity, I am absolutely counting them out. I don't even guarantee that they'll even be at the Austin Major. I think they're gonna fall off hard enough where they end up in the major regional qualifier, and I think they are gonna do poorly there. But I'm kind of counting on a wild card continuing their trend. I'm counting on M80. Like M80 are in a good enough spot where I think they should make it through a theoretical regional qualifier, especially with so many America spots. That's also part of it. Like I think we're gonna have, obviously the America spots also count. Like Brazilian and other South American teams also use them, and there's some strong contenders there as well. But I think we have a lot of options for North American teams. TSM are building a North American team. So they're. No, I'm not saying that they are.
They're building one. It won't be very good. They're not going to try. No.
But we have a lot of options. We have a lot of options for North American teams to come in, which also gives a lot of opportunities for domestic matchups to happen in the major, and that increases the likelihood of a team like Wildcard or M80 going through because they might end up playing TSM for all we know. So, but yeah, Liquid. I would almost lock them in to be in the playoffs. I think they even have they have a chance on pure firepower of winning it. But that also, like, in terms of a major, in terms of having a chance at winning the major, yeah, we've seen twice, maybe even 3 times in the past 3 years that it doesn't actually mean a lot. A lot of teams have a chance of winning the major because we just talked about them. VirtusPro won a major without playing a single top 10 team for the entire tournament, or top 5 team. Sorry. Vitality didn't play a single top 10 team in the playoffs and for their major win, and Navi fluked a major in Copenhagen despite being shit for all of the year. So, but I do think Liquid are coming into 2025 with a good rate of development. So I more likely than not I see Liquid being in Austin Major playoffs and home team advantage. We already saw that was a bit of a factor for Mongols in Shanghai. Like they said that it was one of the things that really mattered to them. We've seen, I mean, even if these are smaller events, we've seen stuff like Dallas, North American teams don't necessarily actually end up performing much better, but they always feel like there's a big pressure to do well here. They really want to do well in the North American events, and now we have a major in Austin, and that's like, okay. There's every opportunity I think here for Liquid to make it big, and I think it's entirely realistic wildcard or M80 improve enough for the duration of the spring season where by June they are a top 12 side, and that's like I think they absolutely could make it through them.
Okay, I've drawn my line because I was looking at a team and where I believed their title-winning window ended.
Mm-hmm.
And I've drawn a line.
Mm-hmm.
So, just because there's one specific event Yeah. Oh, okay. Fuck that. Even with that event in mind. Na'Vi will not win another big event with this roster after April of this year. April is their hard deadline. Because after that, everyone else who's just gotten better, who's just had to make roster moves, could potentially be unstable in the first 3 months, roughly, of the year, will have figured their shit out. And so there will no longer be the option for them to get a nice bracket and be able to win. Because I do not think they're good enough going into this year to beat the likes of Spirit. They basically weren't last year. They only beat them once out of 5 matchups. I think with Vitality's improvement, they won't be able to beat them.
Yeah.
G2 is one of the few top teams who I think have taken an outright downgrade, not by choice, but just simply have. FaZe have just gotten better. So again, I think by that point, they won't be able to beat them.
Even with G2's downgrade, I still would put them in like good chance of a semi-final finish at most events they attend.
Yeah, they're not a bad team.
No, I'd still put them as one of the teams who could make playoffs at every event they play.
Yeah.
It's just that, I think the downturn is going to be in winningness potentially.
Yeah, and I do not think they have. Honestly, eventually, Mouse will stop shitting the bed in playoff series.
Xertion.
Specifically Xertion as well, but yes, in general, they need to stop. They will stop eventually. It can't be a forever thing, right? Like unless it does become the case, they just never ever figure themselves out on stage. Mouse are going to get better as well, and so I think, come the end of April. So technically, the Blast Rival Season 1 won't have finished, but I don't think we count that as a big event come that time. They basically, their last event, they can win. I think a big event in 2025 and onwards with this roster is IEM Spring 2025, whatever that ends up being, because that's just what's on the calendar.
Yeah, I think that's about to be Chengdu, because that's the one we haven't had announced. I'm assuming they're just waiting for some contract to lock down or something.
I don't know.
I think Blast Rivals is going to be a pretty big event. But
I don't think there's a guarantee that they repeat Chengdu necessarily, but
in China anyway, I think. But yeah, it's Blast Rivals is probably going to be a big event. It's going to be basically the equivalent to spring and fall finals.
Yeah, because that ends May 4th. That's where I was like just a bit iffy on like, does that count as a winning event in May, like after April? Like I guess it would, but screw it. I'm just going to take the gamble that they don't win that anyway.
I would say that this is not. I'd almost say this isn't particularly bold because I agree with it, but then also I have to include that we aren't going to have, as much as I look at this calendar, I see, there's like a big event every month, which Na'Vi could absolutely win, and other teams, they're going to improve at a much faster rate than just 4 months. But then it's also like a lot of them overlap, so you're going to have a hard time attending all of them. Like we're fine for January and February and March. But then in April, there's a bunch where like you're probably going to struggle to be at both the IEM in spring and Blast Rivals. IEM spring might be a really easy event because the top 8 teams might just go.
Yeah, but if they win that, it's fine because it's after April.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I think maybe May is also kind of stacked though. Like, but that's where the real conflicts happen, because then you end up having Astana and Dallas. You cannot attend both if you have a hope of winning both. Like, if you have a hope of winning either, you can't attend Astana and Dallas because they're 1 day apart.
Yeah, and then Star Ladder Series also starts.
Yeah,
May 26th.
And then Star Ladder the day after Dallas.
Yeah.
So May is going to be really stacked. Yeah, okay. That's the thing, though. When they're stacked, it might end up splitting the field. Like, we might have half the top 10 teams going to one event. And then Na'Vi have a bigger chance because they might have an easier bracket.
And I still think they will.
That's
the prediction. That's why it's bold.
Okay.
That's why it's bold. Like, come on. If you're talking yourself into believing in them, like, I think
the bolder part would be to just say they won't win at all.
In 2020, no, but the first part of the year is happening. The first part of the year where everything's fresh, they should be winning events early in the year. As in, have a chance to. They don't have to.
They should absolutely win Blast Bounty. They should win Blast Bounty. I think that's 5 straight games you have to play, and most of them are going to be easy. EPL,
that's not necessarily a guarantee, but there's basically early in the season, there's only one other team that's guaranteed to play, I think, Elite Counter-Strike straight out the bat. That's Spirit. everyone else there's a question mark because they've changed. You know,
with roster, do you mean actual roster, or do you mean like if they make a roster change in April, would you still count that, or would you mean the
no,
exact
of
5?
course not. It's the exact 5,
Okay.
and I assume they're keeping the exact 5 for quite a while.
Yeah, okay. I don't think it's super bold. I don't think it's a bit. I think maybe April is too far a line. I would probably say after March. If I was doing it, I would probably say after March, just for the boldness. Because April is also like that's sort of where they can definitely win. Then of course May they have an even bigger chance of winning, which is going to ruin your prediction. But
they won't. Notice how this isn't.
Yeah.
And this isn't a conversation. There's just this is the line. After that, they will not win anything. I'm just telling you. It's more of a heads up than anything else. It's not a prediction.
I'm just saying I could have drawn the line.
Burn your Navi hoodie. Like it's happening.
I don't have a Navi hoodie. But if there is a if I was going to make it slightly more bold, because I feel like I'm winning on boldness right now. I think if we were doing it more bold, I would probably draw the line March and April.
I mean, yeah, you have gone to the absurdity. 2 North American teams in the playoffs. Yeah, you have gone beyond bold. You've gone reckless. If this was a bet, you've gone absurd. You know, just thrown money away because that's never going to happen.
Yeah,
in a million years. But has it ever happened? 2 NA teams in the playoffs of a major. Have CLG managed to get into a playoffs once a while ago?
Oh yeah, they did. They did actually.
That's probably the last time. Yeah, Liquid played them. Yeah,
Liquid and CLG. Yeah, Liquid won with Simple.
Yeah, I remember that game. Simple flying knifed Cutler or the bold one.
Yeah, he had like a 4K on cash, which is like one of the few games which technically would have qualified for having a graffiti, but didn't. There's only like 3 or 4 examples for that. As in like a round-winning multi-kill, which ends up winning them the series. But yeah, that's just a technicality. I looked into this when the Rob's decision was happening.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, good prediction. A good prediction. I think it could definitely be more bold, but it's a good prediction. I would straight up say I don't think they win anything because I think they're already the past 2 events. I think they've already been poor enough where I just could see them losing to not anyone, but I if they end up stacking up against a Vitality or a Spirit or even a new look G2 in a grand final, I still think Navi honestly lose. But I could be wrong. I kind of hope I'm wrong because
unlike HLTV, I think Blade and Alexi deserve a lot of credit. I think they are coach and IGL of the year. Because obviously a team that only won 4 big events can't have 4 top 20 players and IGL and coach of the year. That'd be absurd. So clearly they're not winning those awards. Otherwise this list makes no sense. So I have faith in them to actually rebuild and restructure, or not necessarily rebuild, but like bring back the team to a certain level, you know, find their confidence again, adjust what was going wrong, fix what had been countered, because there's probably a fair amount of that. I don't expect them, like, you know, the Mirage Youthful sets we saw spammed by everyone by the end of the year that kind of Na'Vi instituted, I assume we're going to be changed. There's going to be some new things to see. Probably Imma no longer in Underpass, but anyway, back on track. Yeah, I do have faith in them coming out the gates. You know, revitalize some fresh ideas and some better plays. And if worse comes to worse, in the first 3 months, JL can carry them to an event like he did in Copenhagen, and we never have to think about it.
Yep.
We can just pretend that's how they play year round and get mad when everyone says it's a fluke. Like that's just how it can work.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I lie on the predictions front. I don't have that much extra that's bold. I think a bold one would be like, Mongols era, but that's not going to happen. I think it'd be bold to even predict Mongols win like a real big event. I just don't think they will.
It would be bold enough to say they even play a grand final, because I think as much as they're solid and Shanghai was solid, they have every single chance of Mongols just completely falling off the face of the earth as soon as they show up in a tier 1 event. I don't think so, but there's every opportunity that they just, they had their moment and now things don't work anymore.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. Again, I have
me neither.
Unlike HLTV, I rate Mara, so
yeah,
that's not going to happen. But let's get back into Rostermania, and I want to do this rather quick because we've got shit tons of them to go through. You know, we have just scroll to the next page.
Dude, we're not even awful. We're like a quarter through the list.
So I'm going to do this. All right, I'm going to read out the the name, the things happening. You give it a grade just like that. A to F. You can add pluses and minuses if you feel like being special. And then we'll have maybe 30 seconds of, fair enough, or, you're an idiot next. You know? Just keep it simple, keep it quick. Because otherwise, this is going to take literally all night. Because we could talk about all these moves ad nauseum, knowing us. So, firstly, it's complexity. We know are losing EliGE, benched Floppy, and are bringing in NickX and Sixy. Grade it.
C+. I like the scouting from tier 2. I think it was always going to be pick somebody up to replace EliGE, somebody like NickX. I do not rate 60 whatsoever. I've seen people say that he's some great player. He's been around for way too long without moving upwards, and he's had some stuff around him where it's like, I just don't think that's going to work out. So C+.
Yeah.
Plus for the scouting in tier 2.
The problem I have with your analysis is just that 60 is going to be the one taking EliGE spots, if I'm not going crazy.
I've
not watched a whole lot of NickX, but I don't... Oh, never mind, it could be NickX, actually. These roles don't make a lot of sense to me, just based on profiles. But
it could be Grim. It could be Grim taking EliGE spot, for all we know. And then
maybe Grim will be a star, Lamau. I think your grade's fair. Good bit of business, though they've not spent too much money on this, I don't think. I hope not. Next, Parry Vision, rebuilding around Jame, essentially. So you'd probably be cutting out Frost, bringing in some riflers. Where do you sit on that?
B+, depending, like pending an A, depending on why Artfrost is leaving. If they're cutting Artfrost to get Jame in, that's just a B. I think that's fine, but you could have just carried on with Artfrost.
And Jame? The entire point of this rumor is plus Jame.
Not Jame. Right? No, not Jame. Like, if you're cutting Artfrost to bring Jame in, I'm not sure I rate it too much.
Well, that is what you're grading, so... if James coming in, Artfrost is going. And the rumor is plus James. So.
Yeah, but if Artfrost is leaving and James is your replacement, that's borderline an A, I think. So I'm giving it B+.
Okay.
Yeah. If Artfrost was already leaving and you need an Opper and you pick up James, that's probably the best one they could have gotten, especially with Dust on there. So yeah.
Honestly, if you're Parry Vision, considering how mid you've been, James, Dastan plus 4 random riflers, basically major final, guaranteed. Yeah. So A+ from me, honestly. Fuck it.
Fair enough.
About as good as it can be.
Yep.
I can't grade Cloud9 disbanding their rumor. Neither
I can.
Like disbanded rumor, that's a grade, is it now?
A+, because I talked about this last week. I think they should disband. I think they absolutely... Yeah, there was no point in keeping this roster anymore. Let's check out last week's episode.
Sure. All right. Bet Boom. Taking from the ashes of Cloud9, Boomich and Axile to complete their roster.
A+, Axile was a top 5 rifle in the world not too long ago, and Boomich is a major winning IGL. For Nafany and Chiron, that's great. I don't even care about the roles.
Yeah, honestly, fairly based. I can't disagree.
Yeah.
I really can't disagree.
Yeah, no.
NIP to cut everyone they currently have and bring in Snappy, Shush, Ujux, and Aros Dosh.
C-. I don't like NIP rebuilding from scratch for the 3rd time in like 14 months. And also, you are one player, like, could be anyone. You could have Snappy and Hooksy both on this team and you would have had a wildcard invite. You could, like, so getting Ujux instead of somebody who would have had a wildcard invite, Bro would have had a wildcard invite. Like, you could have done a bunch of different things and you could have actually played tier 1 instead it's going to be a tier 2 season. Freeing up the players who were there, respect. I do hope they find somewhere to land because, yeah, Rez deserves to have the Brolin and Hampus effect of leaving NIP as well. And being good, like being good immediately after leaving NIP.
But that's cool. Fnatic are cutting Body and rumored to replace him with Fear.
A- because I think it's a good move, but I think they maybe should have done another move. There might be one coming, but if this is the only move, I don't think that's enough, but good job.
Yeah, this is addition by subtraction and then addition by addition, because I think that's a solid IGL move. I just worry about his ability to control big names, you know?
Yeah.
Because he has got to come in and manage a lot, but it's not the worst idea. Eternal Fire, cutting Calyx and adding Jota.
A+, slam dunk move, firepower upgrade. Role balance, you could comment
Yeah,
on
it's
it.
only a
but
firepower upgrade. I think that's always the caveat. I've got to calm people down and like hit the brakes. We've had Eternal Fire rosters with more firepower in theory in the past, and it's
A
been
blank
terrible.
then. Yeah, A blank. I'll just say
Yeah.
an A blank because I think Johto's you're getting him for free basically. He was already contracted to you. It was a loan. Calyx is I kind of rate Calyx. I think Calyx is fine, but like Jota is better. If you can balance this somehow, Eternal Fire or genuinely a tier 1 menace and solidly inside the top 10 for all of the year. If you can balance it.
All right. Big losing Rigon and Searson. I mean, there's no replacement rumors. I mean, I've just thrown it out there. They've got to be signing someone, and Spinks is out there. But more importantly, all we know is Big cut those two.
See, I don't. If they have ambitions of going international, then yeah, this is great. If you can get a good opera and a good player there. But if they have ambitions of just going German speaking again, you could have just as well kept Searson. Searson had a slight uptick as soon as Toby came in and was starting to look like the good player he was when he was playing online. So if you could have sustained that, then you maybe should have just kept Searson. But if you're bringing in someone like Panix or Hyped to op on this team, then just fuck off. So it's a B or a D depending on what they do, but for now it's just a C.
Fair enough. I'm not sure how you can grade the fact that Hooksy and Floppy are free agents, but
I put this in because I kind of wanted to talk about like, oh, these are two good players who actually could end up somewhere slightly worthwhile. Like as much as Floppy wasn't
good.
No, but put him in an upper North American ECL side, and that's a pretty big upgrade, especially if he can play like he did in the past. Hooksy as well. It'd be like, somebody sign Hooksy, please.
So many teams could benefit from Hooksy, and they just don't realize it. Let's put it that way.
No,
but
stupid.
Floppy is not the same. Yes,
No,
here is where tier 1 ends. Generous to put Floppy above the line.
A+, we're halfway.
FlyQuest, cutting Alistair and adding Regali. I mean, I've seen one opinion that's heavily dissenting that I thought was pretty well written, but I don't know where you stand on this.
B. Just a straight B. You had to cut Alistair. I think you could have had better options than Regali based on what some people who have played with him have said about him, which isn't necessarily negative. It's not an attitude issue. It might just be like he's not that great. I defer to my own lead speak interview with Bird from Sky, where I asked him, do you think Regali has what it takes to become the big thing? And Bird from Sky was like, no, not at all. So if this is a move where FlyQuest want to enter the sort of the second best next to Mongols, like enter this sort of conversation, this is not it. But fucking credit for actually finally getting a European player on this team.
Yeah, Regali's talent is undeniable. It's just, it's always the chat of like, oh, he might have this problem. He might be this kind of guy. He might be this or that. And it's not, I don't really know any of it because I've never played with the guy. All I can speak about is what's in the demos, and what's in the demos is fucking sick. So can't really say much else. Monty have cut Key, Krasnal, and Norrot.
Probably, if this is the end to the weird Polish-speaking project, that's probably a B+. I think Key should have been available earlier. Krasnal, I think I won't say overstayed his welcome. He's fine, but then cutting Navrot, I don't really understand because Navrot is very well regarded. But
I mean, they had Navrot 4 months.
This might be
4 months
just be
they
the
did
start of a
sweet fuck all.
disband. Yeah, I mean, this might just be the start of a disband. I have no idea. Who knows? I think Key should have been made available much earlier because Key was a really good player. And if he had been available when the others went to ENS, then ENS could have been a way different team today.
Oof. Oof is all I'll put to that. Eklot have benched or lost Kriaz.
I don't know what this is, if he just didn't renew his contract or if they cut him. I don't think they've announced a replacement. So, no, they haven't. I have no idea. Question mark. What the fuck's going on? I'll rate any team who picks Kriaz up. I'll say that's an instant A in my opinion. Because I think he did so much with Eklot as a first-time IGL, taking them to the RMR with players who really had no business being there.
Okay.
And being half decently competitive. Sorry, we're forgetting that they won a map against Fnatic. They beat Sangal 2-0. They beat Gamer Legion 13-11. Like, they played overtime against Falcons with Simple. That's for a team who have no business being at the RMR at all, that's good. Like they were one game off of qualifying for the major.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's understandable.
Yeah.
Legacy losing Nekis and adding Lux and Nissim.
I'll say A because I love Nissim. I think Nissim is ridiculously talented, and I'm happy he's finally out of Sharks. Lux also really did good stuff on Pain, which I wasn't expecting him to do because I thought he was really underwhelming when he was on Fluxo and in the first iteration of the roster. But he kind of snuck up on me where like I wasn't really paying attention, and then suddenly Pain were like 14th in the world with Lux on a 115 rating or something. So good job. I'll say A.
Yeah, a lot of people really confused why Lux is available, really, because they thought they had to keep him. But let's move on to the next move, which I just added in, because it's been rumored but wasn't added to the list. Pain to add Davideus in place of Lux. What's your feeling on that? You a Davideus fan?
It's probably a strong B or just a blank A. I'm not really sure if you obviously didn't need to cut Lux. I'm assuming Legacy came knocking and wanted to buy him, and that's a good job. And Davideus is I think he's fine. He's a good player. So if they can get good stuff out of him, then good job. So a vague B to A, which I guess would be A minus.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Because if you believe in Davideus' ceiling, not the worst move in the world, but considering how well he played with Lux, it's a bit of an odd decision, but still, we'll see how it goes. Tai Lu, cut Starry, and Linvision sign him back.
F, because I think what happened here is Tai Lu waited for his contract to expire, signed Starry, and then Starry is bought back a few months later on whatever buyout Tai Lu was asking for him. What the fuck? What are you doing, Linvision? So F, straight up F. It's nice that Linvision have him back, but what the fuck are you doing? Like,
weird, very weird. Yeah, I mean Starry is
monetarily.
He's pretty talented, but yeah, it's just a weird situation.
And getting Starry back is nice, A, but like in the way you did it, that's just a straight F. What is this management?
Yeah, odd. But all right, Bait and Kono essentially swap. We have Kenzizor to Bait, Captain Kirka to Kono.
I'll say A plus for Bait Kenzizor. That's just further stacking a really talented lineup with even more talent. Kono, I'll say A minus. I don't think Captain Kirka was the most impressive player on Bait by any stretch of the imagination, but he's adding some experience into that Kono lineup, which I think could be really good. I'm sure. I think maybe Kono cut one more player at some point here. I think they did cut somebody else as well.
Oh no, they've cut a couple players. They've let go of Paul Bandana, Enzizor's gone, and who else has gone missing? Niffy was a stand-in.
He was listed on the roster page, but
so it's Paul Bandana's replacement. Who's now gone.
I assume so, yeah. But you also need two more.
And Beria, that's it. Beria 9.
Beria 9,
that's it. I don't know how I'm supposed to say that, but yeah.
Hard to rate the move, but if you're rebuilding around Captain Kirka, I think that's fine for a team like Kono, who are realistically not going upwards at a particularly fast rate. So if you're rebuilding around some tier 1, or not even tier 1, if you're rebuilding around some upper tier 2 experience, good job. A minus.
Yeah, not really much remove for them. Sashi replacing Mister with Xiphon.
A plus for signing Xiphon. I'm a little bit disappointed it's on Sashi and not a better team, because Xiphon definitely could have gone any number of ways.
Yeah, it feels like a C for Xiphon, like specifically, like C or a D for Xiphon. Yeah. For the Sashi org, like who actually signed him, great. But unless Sashi are chopping more, changing more, maybe if they end up being the Hoaxy destination and something else happens, then maybe. But otherwise, fuck me, Xiphon. You could have waited. Like this didn't have to happen. Surely you're not that much for persona non grata in your own scene that you had to sign for Sashi, given your talent.
Well, Hunden, Lucky, Altix, Xiphon, Cabby, and then you have Iceberg as the fifth. I can't remember who's calling, if it's Cabby or Iceberg, but that's fine. And I think Sashi have also done better than I expected both in tier 2 and in the few bigger opposition stuff. They knocked out Astralis out of the RMR, which is hilarious.
Hilarious, but also they didn't knock them out, but they beat them.
While playing with a player they didn't they had cut out of the team 2 months earlier. Like Quest wasn't even on the. Oh, they didn't knock him out. No, sorry, yeah. But yeah, they beat them. But they played with Quest. They cut Quest 2 months earlier, but they couldn't add Altix because he was registered with TSM. So they couldn't play the RMR with Altix. So like,
Yeah, this team's just bad though. Like,
it's wild, but like if this works, good job. That's a talented thing. So I'll say A+ for signing Siphon. Anybody who does, I think it's just an instant A+. I think he's so good.
yeah, I should take this for Siphon. Right.
Yeah.
OG adds Spook.
A++++. I think it's about time somebody picked this guy up. And OG, it's kind of the perfect destination for him because he ends up being the the end replacement for. I'd say he's the end replacement for HeavyGod, maybe even Keto. I'm not even sure exactly who he's replacing, but for a lineup, like the only person, like this is a very unproven lineup at this point, but it's also very promising because you have Krisen, you have Buzz, and you have Spook. That's great. If they can prove themselves on OG, that's like a great recipe for OG to start building back up again because they are solidly out of tier 1 at this point. Fico is the only player who has sort of had the chance to prove himself and hasn't done it yet, I would say, at a decent level. But for like a rebuild phase, I think Fico can be fine. So I'm going to say A+++++ for signing Spook. It's about time.
Yeah,
somebody had to do it.
OG are just weird. They're nowhere.
Yeah, super weird. But this could be the roster, which actually starts being something again. It's probably not going to compare to the
ambitious,
prime.
But yeah,
it's not going to compare to the prime LXV rosters that they had because as much as those were very underwhelming, they were like leagues above what OG have been for the past year.
Yeah, but to be fair, back then they could buy themselves into real events.
Yeah, but this is
a
like
very different scene.
Going on a young core, going on a talented young core. I respect that a lot, and I think that could have been a good job.
We'll see. Amcal have benched the entire roster.
Probably
hard to grade that, isn't it?
It's probably a good move. I think there's really talented players here. I think Nota, obvious talent. I just hope he's not on $1 million buyout. That's why I'd give it a E- if they're on like millions. If Nota is going to be in contract jail on Amcal. I think as much as Forrester hasn't been at his best recently, I think Forrester is really talented. I think he's shown good stuff in the past, so I think he could still do something on a tier 2 Russian side. And I think Travis has also showed good stuff in the past. So there's rifle talent here, which I would hate to be locked on contract jail. So the fact they're benched and not released is kind of an E- for me. But if they end up actually being reasonable about their buyouts, then I'm going to say that that's a good move. Because Amcal weren't doing shit. They were twice in the worst Counter-Strike game ever played. So...
They were.
Yeah,
and that's because they play terrible CS. Let's be real.
Yeah.
They play terrible CS. So this is, for the players involved, they separate and go their own ways. Great. If they don't, oh, fucking hell. We're going to have to watch more abominations from them. They just don't play good CS.
Icy was really expensive, so I'm kind of cautiously thinking that, oh god, Nota's going to be stuck here for a year. And if that happens, E-, F. But yeah, anyway.
We'll see. Monty have stopped the Academy project, which is not a shame, but
yeah,
not all of them were that good.
I think that's honestly an F because I think that team did decently, and this is also sort of why I'm thinking Monty might just be exiting CS because there's no way that Academy roster was costing them a particularly huge amount of money, and I'm pretty sure all of those players are now just released. So it's not even that you have the opportunity. Well, maybe you have the opportunity. Maybe that's going to happen in the next couple of days. That somebody like Ryu can actually step up into the main team again. But if you're stopping an academy project, it's just sad and boring, and you shouldn't do it. Just keep going. It's good for the players who are there, and it's maybe an E- because they have the opportunity to find something else. There's some really good players here who definitely should be in the tier 2 conversation for sure.
Yeah, I think they could do with just promoting some of them if they do intend on keeping a main team.
Yeah, Ryu would be
bring
a
up
slam
Ryu,
dunk
bring up Gizmy, and let them work. But
yeah, good job.
Yeah, for now, a bit of a shame because they were like one of the good tier 2 academies. You know, like in tier 2 play, they did win a lot of games.
They won
Eyeballers,
events, straight up.
yeah, they won events. Eyeballers have added Peter as their coach.
I
You're the
think
one
this
wearing
is
the hoodie. You're the expert on this one.
Yeah, I think this is the first time in a long time. I think actually no, it's not even the first time in a long time. I'd say a B plus because I'm not particularly impressed with Eyeballers. I'm not super impressed with the current roster. I'm not impressed with how they're using Poi, but I have a lot of respect for Peta and the way he, you know, his merits and the way he talks about the game and the way the impact that he's had on some of the rosters he's coached. So B plus, cautiously bordering on an A. Because if there's somebody who can rescue this team, I would say Peta.
Yeah, I'd say no one, but we'll see. Right. Gaiman Gladiators have benched the entire roster, making Roy, Nikodos, and Patty free agents.
I talked to somebody about this who thought it was really weird that they already did this. They haven't even benched them. They've just cut them. They're all free agents. So it's really weird they signed Nikodos and Roy. This is really funny. And I'm gonna say my grade here is I like that these players are free agents. I think they should be somewhere in the Danish tier 2 talent pool, especially Patty. Patty, who I think has been teamless for a bit too long. I think he could have been in a lot of places. Major qualifying IGL. So, but funny story. They added Roy and Nikodos, and just like the week before, I think they did that move. That's a decently big money move. Even if it wasn't with buyouts, that's a bigger salary than they were definitely paying for the players they replaced, Salazar and them. When they made that signing, they were maybe 15 spots into the range where you need to be to make the major close qualifier for Shanghai. 1 week passes, and the window comes. They are about 2 spots outside that window. They lost about 20 ranking spots after making that signing. Somebody thought, why do you make this big sign, like big name signing, and like replace Paddy and all of that stuff when you're just gonna exit CS 6 months later? Well, the reason is they were so sure they were gonna make it into the major with the spots they had. They thought 15 spots. There's no way we lose 15 spots in a week. We're not even playing. Points decay. The curve really accelerates at the end, and basically all of their points came from the Copenhagen major. They lost 100 points in pure time decay week to week, when that event became too old to really give them all of those points. So kind of screwed over by banking too much on the Valve ranking. So pour them and put them somewhere good. They're better than where they've been playing, I think. As the players.
Big Equipa cutting Letty and Giuliano.
I have no idea about the specifics of this move. Probably just a question mark. Because Giuliano being available is good for everybody else, but it's really shit for Big.
Yeah, and they still have Kyosa on the bench. They're just... It's not like Zana, Jenny R. I mean, Paulie I don't have that strong an opinion on, but Zana and Jenny R are pretty good players.
Yeah.
Have been the base for a lot of big success. I don't know. I think there's still ways for this team to be good. I'm just, cutting Giuliano and doesn't feel like a good move, right? NIP Impact have cut NATO Sapphics.
Also, no idea why. I assume that NATO Sapphics had a 1-year contract and he has decided not to renew because he's felt he's showed enough to coach a better team in this time. So I'm assuming that's what it is because he seemed really happy with his NIP time. So I can't grade this either. Question mark. I don't really know his merits of being a coach.
Okay. Aurora to add Patsy and Grix to finish out their lineup.
That has been done. I'll give that a C because I think Patsy could have done better. I think Patsy could have.
Yeah, but we're grading Aurora here, firstly.
Yeah, if we're getting Aurora, then that's fine. They've added a talented player and they've added their best academy player, so A, I guess.
Okay.
But it's a bit of a shame. Similar with Siphon, I think it's a bit of a shame that I think Patsy could have been better. I think even if he stayed on Perivision, that could have been better. Because Patsy's shown really good stuff in the past few months. It seems like he's really back to... Yeah.
He's been performant on a team that hasn't been. Like, the team has been pretty shit overall, but Patsy's played fairly well. Honestly, I think it's a great move for everyone involved. I don't see why not, because Aurora sure, they sit outside the tops of the ranking, but they have the talent in terms of like Norway, Kenzie, and now Grix to just have a strong streak of results and pop back up. So I think it's fine for him because he wasn't going to make a move to a massive team. I don't think. I think like envisioning a 9Pandas move would have been absurd, and I think this is pretty good. Still, unless you're thinking bigger, but like I don't think that's big.
No. I think maybe something like I think he could have been an option for Bet Boom. I think, but then Exile is a slam dunk, of course. But
that'd have been ugly. I think.
I don't know.
I
don't know. I think he's a good player. I think he. I just don't really trust what Klax is doing here, and like Result left because like he didn't like the vibe in the team. Like he thought they weren't working hard enough. It feels like it could be a career ender, but yeah.
Right. Koi,
if it works, good move.
Koi benched the entire roster.
It's another question mark. I think I'm not sure they benched. Two of them, I think, have been released or benched, and all of the players are allowed to explore their options.
One of those situations.
I think they're just exiting CS. They're a bit too big of an organization, Koi, to be hanging around in the round top 100 range.
Yeah, they've just not been very good.
Yeah.
The final one of the show, quite an interesting one. Game EliGE, rumored to be adding Cielo of Gun 5.
No idea about the credibility of this. I think Growmob said they were interested, and then ZTR and Towson posted a bunch of those like signed contract emojis like a few days after that leak. So I'm just assuming this is what's happening. I haven't heard anything else. I like it. Cielo has been on quite a bit of different teams. And he's been on quite a bit of different radars over the years. There was one point where Cielo was one of the teams on VP's shortlist, reportedly, which is crazy because I think that was like a year ago or more. But he seems really good. Everybody's saying he's extremely talented. I haven't actually watched him in ages, so I'm not sure. I can't really speak on that, but that's everybody saying like, wow, this guy has like the mechanics to be a tier 1 player at the very least. So him coming into Game EliGE could be cool, I guess. I mean, look, I'll trust Ash anytime. So if that's the move, good job.
Yeah, I'll trust him to make something out of players. I mean, I'm not sure I always agree with every signing. Honestly, on this roster, Gun 5, you tell me I need an aggressive player. I take Cielo. I'm like, yep, that's cool. You telling me I could then, let's say, if I could do a package deal, sneak in Tnir and cut Towson.
Yeah.
I'm saying, you're not just cooking with gas, you're cooking with the fucking primo, like top quality. This is clean burning shit. Like, this is fucking straight fire, no pollutant. Like, this is perfect. Otherwise, Cielo, he is talented. There's no two ways about it. Like, the guy's pretty cracked. He's openings motherfucker to the maximum. Not even. Yeah, I'm not got any doubts about who he is as like a raw mechanical player. I want more moves if I'm a Game EliGE stan. I think even if I'm buying players out of Gun 5, can I afford 2 of them? Cough cough. Or is Tnir's buyout set to like ridiculous levels because of how well he's played in tier 2?
I think he was linked somewhere else. I can't remember where. It might honestly have been 9Pandas, I think.
That would make sense as well. It's just weird to me I haven't seen any of this sort of stuff. But look, they just won the last European Pro League in December, the last Casino Cup. You know, they've rolled some tier 2 teams in recent weeks, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of their players are linked. But those are the roster moves. Those are the grades. I have lunch plans, so I'm not going to extend this show even further. We're already almost 2 hours in. So yeah, interesting. A lot of chaos. Not a lot of Counter-Strike being played, unless you're watching fucking Wopa games, which I am, but that's not the point. It's been quite an empty time, so waiting for the season to really start up again, so we can get a good idea of who these teams are. And that's the end of the show. Quack.
All right. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
No, sorry.
No. I'm not extending the show anymore. I'm not going to add the tiers. I'll do that next week. It'll also give me a chance to rework a graphic because I did forget Falcons entirely.
Oh yeah, that would have been embarrassing.
I added them in, but I was like, I don't actually have this fully like loaded
it works
up
for
already.
It works for next week as well because we have no tier 1 play until next week.
It'll work, don't worry. But no, that's the show. If you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a comment telling us your thoughts on all these moves and everything like that. Remember that members get access to extra content, and it starts at £2 a month. That's the content tier. Higher tiers are basically very limited bonuses. Currently, when I start doing live streams and other stuff, there will be more, I think, available. But yeah, sub if you want more, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.